What difference will you make today?
You're still considering legal action against the city?
Yes.
Eight months after he was fired, Port Arthur's former fire chief Greg Benson is still fighting to get his job back. He hasn't had an appeals hearing. That should have happened months ago. And Port Arthur taxpayers may end up paying plenty for the city manager's misconduct. You think they're stalling?
Yes, they're stalling to get a little bit of time in place so that, maybe there's not that much interest at this point.
Benson helped us prove Acadian Ambulance was cheating the city, falsifying response time records. And we don't forget when someone helps us fight for the truth. So why has the city of Port Arthur now shelved the criminal investigation into Acadian?
They didn't want to go after them. They wanted to protect them.
It was right before Christmas last year when we first met Greg Benson, at the time the fire chief in Port Arthur. We were investigating Acadian Ambulance, a Louisiana ambulance service with deep political ties all across southeast Texas.
Numerous members of this department have said that for years there's been a buddy system at work here.
Acadian had been providing ambulance service in this part of the Golden Triangle for more than a decade, without having to document their required 8-minute response time. Benson even suspected some of his staff were too close to Acadian, had looked the other way, including his deputy chief, Robert Havens. Benson was starting to ask the same questions we were, but the city manager had ignored him.
So I started asking about their performance level, and they're going, "Oh, Benson's asking about this stuff now."
We didn't know our conversation was being secretly recorded by a fire department security camera, but we did find out that someone wanted to see a copy of what we were discussing. It was former fire chief Larry Richard. But why?
None of your business? None of my business? What, are you a spy for Acadian or something?
With Benson's help, we proved the ambulance service was cheating Port Arthur taxpayers. Dozens of times, Acadian simply had no ambulances to even respond to an emergency call, or they claimed suspect response time numbers.
Yeah, man, I miss her so much.
Records surrounding the death of Francisca Dublon helped us prove Acadian had falsified their response times, manipulating monthly reports to Chief Benson.
If the ambulance came in here earlier, I think she would have been alive.
In January, we filed a complaint with the Port Arthur police chief, alleging the false response time data Acadian gave the city amounted to a crime, falsifying a government record.
I would leave no stone unturned to make sure that we get to the bottom of it.
But that was a lie. Instead, the knives came out for Chief Benson.
This is just so bizarre. You may have heard Burton talk about being the epitome of transparency and accountability.
I am the epitome of transparency.
This was another instance where he did not do that at all.
We are able to achieve a lot in the city of Port Arthur because we've got great staff, the exceptional staff like Greg Benson.
Just weeks after telling the Chamber of Commerce how great the fire chief was, Burton fired Chief Benson. We went to City Council to complain. You guys need to really take this seriously and hold people's feet to the fire.
It appears the musical chairs may be ending in the Port Arthur Fire Chief's office.
In July, the city of Port Arthur appointed Robert Havens interim fire chief. And we now know that one of his first official acts was to kill the Acadian investigation. Last May 2nd, the police chief asked Havens for a sworn document about the false reporting so he could move forward with his investigation. There was no email response from Havens. Nearly 3 months later, the chief reminds Havens that he never got a response and gave the interim chief the opportunity to end the probe if he wanted to. Havens took it. Havens' response should raise alarm bells. I've been doing this a long time and it just doesn't smell right. Quoting, "This whole submitting false government documents is problematic for a couple of reasons. First, the records were a private company's work product and not a product of the city of Port Arthur or any government entity. And there was no official document that was required to be produced as part of the city contract." Almost sounds like Havens was told what to say by a lawyer. or someone working for Acadian.
Just based on some of the comments in there, it might have been a legal person that wrote it.
A legal person from Acadian.
Yeah.
You're not surprised, though.
No, I'm not.
Havens also said the questions about Acadian's response times are somehow moot because they no longer have the contract in Port Arthur. That's an insult to taxpayers who put their lives, their literal lives, in Acadian's hands for years. Mr. Havens, Chief Havens, he won't talk to us. But the police chief dropped the investigation after that email, a month after I questioned whether the city was fulfilling its promise to investigate.
I feel like I'm getting played along.
Doesn't the police chief deserve some blame here too?
Yes, he does.
I make the difference.
Do you have what it takes?
Port Arthur has a new ambulance company now, City Ambulance, with dedicated ambulances now stationed inside the city limits. That's improved response times.
We have no problem with City EMS. Our relationship with them has gotten better. Their service has gotten better to us, for the citizens of Port Arthur.
It's clear Port Arthur won't hold Acadian accountable, but our investigation should raise red flags in other cities where Acadian provides ambulance service. The city of Pasadena fought our investigation every step of the way. That city's deal with Acadian requires them to respond to life-threatening emergencies in 9 minutes, at least 90% of the time. The city has no record showing they ever monitor response times in the interest of public safety. Where's the accountability? It's simply not right if Greg Benson was fired simply for caring about the safety of residents in Port Arthur. And I don't forget the public officials who helped me expose injustice. I don't forget.